You are welcome to Unit 3 of this model. And in Unit 3, we'll be looking at the models of curriculum planning. And in the first session of this unit, we will be looking at the Tyler's model of curriculum planning. My name is Patrick Eji. Now, by the end of this session, you should be able to state Tyler's 4 fundamental questions that must be answered when planning a curriculum. Then, explain the schematic diagram of Tyler's rational model. Then finally, explain the points raised in criticizing Tyler's model. So let's take a look at Tyler's model. Now, in one of Tyler's books, that is the Principles of Curriculum and Instruction, Tyler made mention that in planning a curriculum, there are 4 fundamental questions that one must find answers to. And these questions are: what educational purposes should the school seek to achieve? Then 2, what educational experiences will best achieve these purposes? Then the third question is: how can these learning experiences be organized to achieve these purposes? Then finally, how can we determine whether these purposes are attained? So looking at Tyler's 4 questions, you realize that the first question talks about the educational purposes. The second one talks about the educational experiences. The third question talks about organization of the experiences. And the fourth question, or the last one, talks about evaluation of the experiences. So in the subsequent sessions or slides, in the subsequent presentation, we are going to look at what entails in each of the questions that Tyler asked. And so, the first question talks about the educational purposes. And here, Tyler is of the view that in planning a curriculum, the planner must decide on what educational purposes the school should seek to attain. And then these purposes are the aims and the objectives. And these aims and objectives can be derived from the systematic studies of the learner. It can also be derived from studies of contemporary life in society and from analysis of the subject matter by specialists. Now, to Tyler, these 3 sources of objectives should then be screened through the school's philosophy and through knowledge that is available about the psychology of learning. So the various means through which learning occurs, we must screen these 3 sources of information or objectives through to find out whether they really fit in the school's philosophy. And once they fit, then we must state the objectives as specific and precisely as we can, and these objectives shouldn't also be ambiguous. So that is the educational purposes. And the second one talks about educational experiences. And here, Tyler is of the view that planners must determine what educational experiences, that is, what content can be provided to help achieve the objectives or the purposes that has been stated. And possible experiences must be checked for their consistency with objectives and for economy, so that every content that is being selected must be in line with the objectives or the purposes that has been stated. Now let's look at the organization of learning experiences. And in the organization of the experiences, the curriculum planner must find ways that these experiences can be organized effectively. So the content must be arranged in such a way that there must be that consistency, there must be that flow within the content or the learning experiences. And so the planner must attempt to provide experiences that have cumulative effect on the students. Cumulative effect in the sense that whatever thing the learner takes in the first step, in the second step must have a certain kind of relationship, said that whatever things that the learner will be learning will not be on their own, but there is that kind of relationship among the content or the learning experiences that is being studied by the learner. Then Tyler recommends that these experiences must be built on one another and enable the learners to understand the relation among their learning activities in various fields. So you observe that in our teaching, always we state the relevant previous knowledge, which normally is linked to what we are about to present to the learner, so that once the learner is able to come out with those previous knowledge, it makes it easier to present the new information you are about to give to the learner. And then, so example of this is that if you want to teach Kirchhoff's law, then the student or the learner must have a basic knowledge on Ohm's law as well as simple electric circuit. Once the learner has no background knowledge on Ohm's law or on simple electric circuit, it becomes difficult to teach the learner Kirchhoff's laws. Let's look at determination of the attainment of purposes. And over here, the planner must determine whether the educational purposes are being attained. And how can the planner do this? The planner can do this through objective evaluation instruments. So the use of tests, work samples, questionnaires, records, all these are developed to check the curriculum's effectiveness. And here the criterion for success is that there must be a behavioral change in the learners. Once this behavioral change is being observed, then we can say that the curriculum objectives have been achieved. So this is a schematic diagram of Tyler's model. And in the schematic diagram, we see a linear model, a linear diagram. A linear in the sense that we have objectives, then from objectives we go to the selection of learning experiences. And based on the learning experiences that are being selected, the learning experiences are then organized. Then at the end, we do evaluation to find out whether the objectives have been achieved. Now, when you look at Tyler's model carefully, you realize that evaluation can only occur at the end of the model. So evaluation takes place at the end of presenting the content to the learner. So, to Tyler, schooling is assumed to be a process, and the main purpose of a school is to produce or promote learning. And in the school, students are termed learners, and the objectives are conceived in terms of desirable learning. Then, evaluation of the school's success is targeted almost exclusively on achievement test scores. So, at the end of the content, when you give a test item and students are able to do well on the test, then we can say that the target objective have been achieved. And educational goals are distinguished from non-educational goals by determining if they can be attributed to learning, so that every goal that can be attributed to learning can be termed as educational goal. Those that do not attribute to learning cannot be termed as educational goals. Also, Tyler defines curriculum in terms of intended learning outcomes. And for that, schooling is conceived as a production system. And in the production system, individual learning outcomes are the primary product. And the curriculum planning is assumed to be an enterprise. And in this enterprise, the planner will develop the means that will help us to achieve the desired learning outcomes. So the means will be given by the planner, and this means is what will help us to obtain the desired learning outcomes. And so when you look at how the model is, where there is a means which is helping us to achieve a certain outcome, then the model is more or less a means-end reasoning process. And this means-end reasoning process serves as the logic that underlie all rational decision making. So we can compare Tyler's model to a state where maybe you want to travel, and you realize that Before you travel, before you decide which route you should take, the route that you will take will determine on where exactly you are going. It means that any route that you take, you already have the destination in mind. So with the destination in mind, that will tell you the kind or the route you are to take. And so we can link this stylus model to a travel metaphor where you have destination in mind, which will help you determine the route that you are to take. And so because of you knowing your end before taking the route, then we can say that the model is a linear in the sense that you know the end before you start everything. You know where you are going before you determine which route that you must take. So, ladies and gentlemen, today we have looked at Tyler's model of curriculum development. And we saw that Tyler's model mentioned that before you plan a curriculum, there are four fundamental questions that you must try to find answers to anytime you are planning a curriculum. And we also saw that the means and reasoning in Tyler's model makes the model assume a linear view. I hope you enjoyed this session. Thank you for joining this session and see you in subsequent sessions. Bye.